And welcome back to the Ultra Running Guys. You got Jeremy Reynolds and Jeff Winchester of the Ultra Running Guys. And the reason that we're here is to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey. And if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. We appreciate you so much. Share with your friends. Tell everybody you know, because that helps us out so much. And if you're coming back, your family, we love you. So here's the thing. Part of taking your next step sometimes is figuring out what to put on the calendar. And so a while back, we started these race spotlight episodes where we talk to the people who know the best, the race directors, about all kinds of incredible events so you can decide if it belongs on your calendar. So Jeff, give us the quick overview of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. So for me, now, if memory serves me right, this is the first race that we are going to spotlight in the state of Iowa. I don't think we've had any before that. And so looking forward to this. This was recommended to us, and I know we're going to talk about it in just a minute, but this is the Mines of Spain 100. And it takes runners on 5 20-mile loops covering trails that range from steep and technical to flat dirt, single track, to rolling and grassy and everything in between. It's got everything. It's got, and even
really
pictures, yeah. And on the website, it's got different bluffs and everything and different trails that you can kind of see. It's just a gorgeous looking place. Each 20-mile loop of the course is about 2,800 feet of gain and loss. So it totals out to be about 14,000 feet for the full 100. And runners have 33 hours to complete the distance. So it's a little bit longer than what you see for others. Normally you see about a 30-hour cutoff time, but this has got 33 hours. So you get some bonus 3 hours there. But before we go any further, let's get into it tonight with our race director, Mr. Josh Sun, the race director for Mines of Spain. So Josh, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
And just to clear it up, it is in Iowa. It's not in Spain. So everybody I was joking before the show. But look, man.
Well, people do ask that question.
Oh, I'm sure.
So at least when it's brand new, and for us, it was brand new.
Yeah, it was. And so huge shout out to Chad Fridley for throwing this our way, which has started the ball rolling to have this conversation. So Josh, here's the thing. Obviously, we want to talk tactical stuff. If somebody's listening, watching, we want to give them all the rundown of what to expect when they come to this race. But before we get into that, we just want to know, you as the race director, what is your personal favorite thing about the Mines of Spain 100?
Well, that's obviously, I love that that's your first question. That's a loaded question, I think probably one of the most exciting things about, the race is just bringing all these people together for a few days, like hundreds, really, several hundred runners, almost 150 volunteers, crews, Chad, for example, you just mentioned him, his family's always there. They're volunteering. They're part of Crewville. They're helping out. They're helping Chad. And we've made these great relationships with so many of these people, and it's just fun getting everyone together. It's just kind of end of the year. It's obviously a big race for a lot of folks, usually the last race of the year for them. And then even seeing, the process that they take to get there, to get to the start line throughout the year, if you know them better, or we see them at other races and things like that. So it's kind of just that collection of bringing everyone together, just having that almost, reunion in some ways, but a reunion where we're meeting new people each year. And then those people come back the next year and the next year, and just kind of that building that culture around the event, and be able to have that to look forward to each year. That's what it's for me. I mean, obviously there's a lot of pieces of it, but so the race director, that's a very tough question, but I would definitely say that having that kind of reunion feel every October is definitely a big part of it. So
that's cool. I mean, you describing it as a reunion, I think that's a good indicator of the type of race culture that you've established. But as a reunion, that means people keep coming back. So what is it you think that draws them back to the race each year?
And I'm just going to say this right up front. It's weird talking about, kind of the, your own event, and praising it. Like that's something that I normally don't, it's a weird thing to do, especially in a public forum, So if I seem like shy or uncomfortable, it's because I don't usually like to praise my own races. But just speaking openly and based on feedback of of these people, the runners, the volunteers that do come back every year. I think a big part of it is, the welcoming nature. We've built a really good community outside of just this event. The other events that we organize and the other area events that other race directors organize. It's just a really good group of people. And there's always, like I said, there's all these different groups in the area that all kind of, it's like cousins, and then you just have all the new people showing up, and they're what they feel welcome, and that brings them back. I think more specifically with, the race itself, we have a great reputation. I mean, we have some of the most amazing aid stations, very eclectic, well stocked, staffed. I get feedback all the time from people that are just like, yeah, you've ruined me. Because we go to other races, even like these, big events, or, these, a lot of events around the country, or this, that, the other thing. And they're just like, yeah, it's nothing. It's like, I couldn't get anything to eat or drink, things like that. And again, it's not to speak ill of any other events, but it's, that's, I think, a big reason why people love it. They feel welcome, they feel taken care of, and they feel seen, and cared for. And that's something we're proud of. We put a lot of time and effort into every aspect of the event. And I think that's a big reason why people, Chad, for example, I mean, he just joined the 500-mile club last year. He pretty much ran the 500-mile, or, the 100-miler 5 years in a row. And he was the sixth. He was, first year had 5, the 5th year had 5 people. The 6th year had 2 people. We got another couple people coming up, and a lot more people building, and so it's really flattering, that there must be something there. And that's why I would keep coming back at the very least, is, how well we take care of runners, and again, just kind of that welcoming nature of it all. So
I was just going to say, I mean, that is actually a good indicator of people coming back when you have multi-year runners like that, because there's only so many races and so many hundreds that people are going to put on their actual running calendar. Mm-hmm. And so if they're continuing to come back to your race, there's something about it that draws them back. And I think that just speaks volumes in and of itself, to have multi-year runners that continue to grow that list.
I appreciate you, though, opening up, because like you said, there's probably a little bit of discomfort saying, hey, this is why my race is great, right? But it's very clear, because a lot of times I think races are in a good way, a reflection of the race director's values, right? Mm-hmm. And so some races are known, hey, this is where you go to really challenge yourself. It's going to be hard. I mean, any 100 is going to be hard, right? But you have these different pockets, but the words that you use were taken care of, welcoming, seen, mm-hmm. right? So it's very clear to me the type of environment. So if you're listening and watching and that speaks to you, then it sounds like, this is something you want to look into. And I'm sure we'll get there when we talk about crews, because that's something, but you use the word crewville.
I wrote it down.
Which was like, to me, instant. Everything you're saying, I feel community out of it, which is the biggest thing we love about the ultra world anyways, but something tells me that that's a big, important part of this race. So
can we talk about that?
Let's wait till we get to the crew part. But
I wrote the second thing as like part of crewville. Like, what is crewville?
It's cool. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I'm so I was like, but we're gonna jump. All right, cool. So let's talk about this. We talked about the 5 20-mile loops, 14,000 feet ish of elevation, and it goes through a variety of different kind of terrains. But if I'm listening, I want to know the thing. Hey, what is the thing that may get me, or that I may not pay attention to? What do you think that people may underestimate about this race?
Well, in the positive way, I think they'll underestimate how beautiful the area is and the trails. Like a good underestimation,
right?
Because you can kind of take that a couple ways. Obviously, and it feels kind of cliche at this point, because the race has been around a while, but like people still just don't get. They have a very interesting perspective of Iowa. And, Iowa is a very unique state. We're on the eastern border on the Mississippi River. Dubuque is actually at junction with Wisconsin and Illinois. It's at the southernmost part of what's called the Driftless area, which is,
You're good.
There we go. It's a gorgeous area, and Dubuque's kind of on the south end of it, but it's where the glaciers kind of did not flatten everything out. So it's this gorgeous area with these huge river bluffs. And I think that's the one big thing is people, and obviously the people coming to the race have looked into it, and that probably draws them. So, but I think people are taken aback by that. They're like, wow, like this is Iowa, this isn't what I was expecting. From the more practical, underestimation of like what's going to make it difficult, it is very deceptively challenging. I think people see the numbers, the 14,000 feet, and this, that, and the other thing. And albeit, or, like some of the more scenic areas aren't some of the more challenging areas, so that's the stuff they see. And obviously, we have a lot of pictures of the beautiful areas and things like that online, but, there's no huge climbs, I think, off the top of my head, like 350 feet, maybe, but so none of these climbs are big, but they're constant in a lot of ways. And there's some very technical sections, there's stairs. That's something that, people talk about. And I think people, it is a part of it. Most of them are like natural stairs, timbers, stone, like that, but it beats people's legs up really quick. And, and it's also kind of deceptively runnable. And that's another thing that takes people out. Like the first, first couple miles are basically that's actually a section of pavement. So it's like a downhill
of course,
bike path, like basically a paved bike path. And people are just flying. And then they hit like a flat section and they're flying. And then they start hitting these hills. And I think that's a huge part of it too. It's really easy. And you kind of have to run fast too, because the other sections are so, can really slow you down. So it's just that, I mean that when I say, when the race and, says eclectic, it is very diverse. You're never on like the same terrain for more than a couple miles. It's not like you're just on dirt single track for like 15 miles straight, which is good and bad in my opinion. You're constantly, and I think that just, if you're not ready to kind of adapt and roll and know that it's just constantly changing, that definitely, people underestimate that, and just kind of the sheer ruggedness of it adds up very quickly,
So I'm going to kind of chase that a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of runners are going to approach a race and try to figure out what their strategy is going to be for the course itself. They're going to look at the course layout. They're going to look at the profile. They're going to read whatever race reports they can find. They're going to do whatever Googling they can do, looking on YouTube or wherever. They're going to try to find information, and they're going to come up with a strategy on how they're going to approach the race. Do you see, and like a lot of people do like a run walk, but your course doesn't sound like it's designed for a regimented run walk type scenario. It's more designed to like you run when you can and you walk or hike when you have to. Like, do you find that like, what is a predominant type strategy that people employ at your race?
Oh man, that's tough to say. There's so many different things. I definitely think pacing wise, going with the flow of the course, and that's a natural thing that most people, if they don't go out too hard on that first loop, they can figure out pretty quick. After that, I think it really is taking advantage of like our aid stations and eating a lot. We have our food out, like we take food very seriously. As a hearty eater myself, and my wife is the same way. She ran the race in 2020 and the 100-miler, and she was like smashing like deli sandwiches, like full like grilled like sandwiches at like mile 4. And that's like her thing is food. But it's true. It's like, that's not gonna, not everyone's the same, obviously. But I think that's definitely the case. Is like, I think that, let me back up. The most successful strategies, it's like everything works for different people, different things, so on and so forth. But with that being said, I think it's just being the very important strategy is being patient, and eating a lot and drinking a lot and taking care of yourself. Because another thing too, the temperature drops. It's October. We've had different weather for sure, but almost always the temperature, as soon as that sun goes down, temperature drops. And, if your effort level, your heart rate, your perspiration, everything's a little elevated going into the night, you get cold really quick. And then that influences and more so than other races where if it's a summer race, it's whatever. Winter, you're kind of cold from the start. So it's a more consistent, so I think there's some bigger swings there in temperature than people are necessarily prepared for, especially coming from summertime. And so that messes with digestion. People, aren't able to keep stuff down, things like that. But So successful strategy. Oh, I don't know. Just figure it all out and keep running. And I mean, it's 100 miles. I mean, you guys, it's like you guys get that. There's a lot, but I definitely think respecting the course and it is a hard thing, like you were saying about people looking at stuff online. I think that's part of that underestimation thing. Looking at it online, I think that's a hard way to figure out pacing.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about being flexible, getting there, figuring out the first loop, and then just kind of going off that, knowing what you can run and knowing how fast you can hike and, knowing kind of your own abilities, and you'll do fine.
There's two things that really jumped out to me. So one, when you said the steps, even though it's natural steps, because a lot of times when people are going to train for elevation, right? So maybe, and I'm coming from the perspective of a flatlander, which, probably a lot of Iowa folks can relate. But so
not on that side of Iowa, though.
Not where you're at, right? But the other side, what we normally think of Iowa.
Still a lot of flat, yeah.
So obviously, if you have terrain to go train on, great. But like I think about it, I'm like, okay, so I've done a lot of incline kind of hikes, weighted hikes, those types of things. But stair steps are different than incline walking, right? And
very much so, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're listening or you're considering this, to me, that's a big. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, strength, and then the type of strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lunges, steps, things that really make stair climbers, things that really actually help that muscle group. And then the other thing that you really jumped out, which I think was so good for people to hear, is the calories early and often, right? Because to your point, especially if the weather's great and you got some good runnable sections that you can wear yourself out on, when you slow down and that temperature drops, in our first 100, we had a major decrease in temperature, and like half the field dropped from hypothermia.
That was nice.
half the field dropped. But yeah, so I think both of those are such great points. If you're listening and you're considering this race, those are two to take to heart for sure.
And on that note, is that talking about my DNF, right? On that note, is that what you see as one of the predominant reasons for DNFs at the race, is because of the temperature swings that you talked about, or is there something else you see drives a lot of them?
I think it ties into both of the things that, I think those are two of the bigger things. I definitely think the most common thing I hear, and it's tough to say too, because I'm generally the majority of the race, I'm at the start finish. So it's like, I don't hear everything. Unfortunately, I wish I could be everywhere at once, but I'm not. But, the biggest thing I hear is, knee and ankle pain. Oh. People aren't ready for just the hills. They're not ready for, the off camber nature of a lot of the hills. So it's like, oh yeah, you run down the big hill by your house. It's not the same as running down rocky trails over and over and over and over, especially, like you say, do it faster earlier on, and then it starts to get harder later on. So yeah, I think like there's those people that, I don't want to damage my knee more than, it's like your knee's going to hurt no matter what after 40, 50, 60 miles. I mean, that's just a given, and that I definitely hear a lot of that. And then definitely the other, I would say the other half of it is, not like, all sides of that same coin, eating, drinking, either not be able to keep something down, feeling nauseous, energy, getting sleepy, which is usually related a lot to that anyway. So, it's pretty normal. I guess it's not that much different than most other races in that sense. But it's definitely, I think, that cold part of it kind of, and it's not, we've had some nice nights too, but it usually does, no matter what, the temperature's dropping. And that's usually the latter, with the energy and the nausea and things like that. The cool thing with that is that will almost always pass, So then with that group of people, you see kind of get split even more. There's the people that just don't have it in them, for whatever reason, and they just give up, versus the people that are like, they let the aid stations take care of them. They listen to what people are telling them. They wait 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And then 10 hours later, they're finishing the race and getting a belt buckle. It's like they hit their low and they rode it out, because usually your body can bounce back from that. Your knee's not going to suddenly feel better, but it's also, you're not going to be crippled if you keep moving on it and keep running. You know what I mean? But it's going to hurt. It's probably going to hurt the rest of the race, and that's whatever. Whereas like that nausea, we've seen people make these they're puking or this, or couldn't keep anything down, or they're just, and then, an hour later, they're,
Yeah.
back to running again, feeling better, have like that second, third, fourth wind. And that's really fun to see too. Just, those dips and bounce back stories. You know what I mean? I mean, there's people that just have a great race. They just run the whole time. They're happy, whatever. That's awesome. I mean, we love that too. You know what I mean? But definitely those puke and rally stories are fun to see, and there's always at least a few each year for sure.
So you said something that I don't like to bypass something that gets said by a guest when they talk about whatever the topic is. But you said that if they would just wait and listen to the aid station, and it just caught my attention because I'm like, yeah, I've been in an aid station. They've said some stuff, but do we actually take the time to just like listen and trust what they're saying, because we're so preoccupied with we're already ready to quit or whatever it is that's going through our head. And I think if you're listening to this right now and you're to the spotlight, even if you don't run Mines of Spain and you run some other ultra, your aid station folks, if they tell you to say something to you and give you some advice, what would that experience look like if you were to just pause for a minute and listen to what they have to say? And I think that was a great point that you made.
One of the things, and this again is common with a lot of races, but I can say about our race is that the vast majority of our volunteers, especially the captains, all the captains and lead staff and people like more like major volunteers and stuff, but are all like, they've either they're all ultra runners, trail runners. They've almost all of them have ran, if not all of them have ran 100-milers. Like they've all been there. It's a very experienced volunteer community of people. And so it's one of those things where, yeah, it's really easy to lose that perspective because you're in the moment, you feel like crap. And then, so it's these people like, yeah, just chill out, sit down, do this. And then it gets better. It almost always gets better.
But to listen, to literally listen, and
to actually and to believe them, you know what I mean? And yeah, and I'd hate for to somebody to be, and usually it's listen to caution, don't listen to just keep running,
Yeah, nobody, most aid station captains don't really say that. They kind of take the time to hear what's going on with the person and give some tips.
Take care of yourself. We have one of my good friends. He's one of the aid station captains. He'll be like, he'll take care of you, but then when it's time to go, it's time to go. Because he knows that, I mean, he's ran 100-milers. He knows that at a certain point, you're just delaying the inevitable. You just don't want to go back out in the darkness. You know? You have to.
In the darkness.
And there's a strength to that. So I think this is a good time to transition, right? Because now we're talking about aid station. We're talking about the volunteers. And I want to get to Crewville. So everybody that's listening. So let's talk about those topics. You said kind of epic aid stations. Talk us through what can they expect from the aid stations, and then if they're planning to bring crew with them. Let's talk about Crewville.
Yeah, so I mean, just to kind of give an overview, there's basically start finish, which is also where Crewville is. I'll get back to that, but start finish is at a city park, big open area. We have a lot of space. It's great. And then outside of the Mines of Spain, the actual Mines of Spain recreation area, and then the course itself, there's 3 on-course aid stations, one of which you hit twice. So there's 4 physical aid stations, 5 total aid station stops per loop. The start finish is crew accessible. That's kind of the main area. And then the third aid station 3, which is about mile 15-ish, is also crew accessible. A lot of easy parking, easy logistics, things like that. So I like kind of limiting crew access. I think having crew access at every aid station is completely unnecessary. I think it's good to kind of make people a little more self-sufficient. And it just also works logistically that we really can't have crew at the other 2 aid stations. There's not enough space. It's not good. So the crew access is pretty much every, 15 miles, 20 miles, 35, 40, so on and so forth, You could pick up pacers at either one too. So it's crew, pacer, whatever. It's pretty open-ended in that regard. The Crewville is kind of, well, it just, it's one of those things like 99% of what we do, it's friends, making a joke, and then, it leads to this, that, and the other thing. So it kind of just turned into, I really love the idea of like, kind of like just like a community where people cruise, they it's easy for them, like it shouldn't be hard for them. Like, the hardest part of the race should be taking care of the runner. not getting from place to place or feeling comfortable or having access to things. So one of the things that, when I was building out all the initial, almost, 7 years ago, I wanted to make it as crew accessible as possible in that sense. And the park that we're at has this big green space. So there's this huge green space kind of like adjacent to everything. It's right next to everything. And yeah, we just were like, let's make this, kind of like a city, like a little town. And, we kind of basically you get, room. It's like roughly, I think they're like my one friend who's a big part of the race. He does he basically paints like 12-foot diameter circles on the ground. So we paint out like 50. I don't even know how many he does, like just all these lots. And then it's first come, first serve. You pretty much roll in. You can set up a canopy, tent, things like that. Your space. Since then, we've done Crewville raffles for prime real estate spots, where we have spots over right next to the aid station, things like that. Raised a ton of money for charity that way. It's been awesome. And just is basically, it allows the crews to kind of have their own life there while, and then they have easy access to bathrooms, to the aid station. So when their runner's coming in, they just go oop, and they bop over, and then if the runner wants, their own space or privacy, they can dip over to their spot in Crewville, and everyone treats it differently. Some people have, 10 family members there, and other people just, is by themselves, and they just set up a cute, lonely chair, in the middle of one of these plots, a cooler and a chair. And that's awesome. We want people to be self-sufficient too. But it kind of caters, it allows people to have, and we've heard from so many crews, Chad's wife, Lisa, included, she's a perfect example. They love it. It's like a camp out pretty much for them, and they're allowed to be there overnight, obviously through the night. And we've had all sorts of other, we have a flag got made. We hoist up there with the American flag. It's a Crewville flag now. We've been working with a coffee truck now that's set up there kind of. And so people are pretty much, and that's nice. Cause I think the worst thing is making it where it's like dreadful for crews to have there. And then, they can easily bop out and go over to the other aid station where they can meet the runner or this, that, and the other thing. So I got all excited about that. So I might've talked a little bit too much about Crewville, so I apologize, but it's fun. It's kind of just creates another part of that atmosphere, and that gives, we hear a lot of times it's like people are like, well, they don't want to do the 100, but they're going to run my, husband and wife is running the 100, so we can come hang out at Crewville. You know what I mean? Like they look forward to it. It's like a little mini family vacation. So that's fun. I think you're asking about the aid stations themselves. Like, what can you expect from the aid stations? Or
Well, I want to pause on Crewville real quick because I just want to go to Crewville. So going back to the community and stuff you talked at the beginning, the reunion, to me that so stands out. We put on a couple races ourselves, and one of our favorite parts is kind of that they're loop courses in that central area, right, where people, like you said, can hang out, get to know each other. It's like people become family. And as you're talking about it, my kids grew up camping, and it's like they would go out and make friends within the first 10 minutes we were there. And Crewville sounds like the kind of place where by the end, you're going to like have friends and family that you didn't show up with.
Oh yeah. Right. It's exactly that. And it just gives people that option. You can be, you can have that your own privacy and, your own space. But if, you want, you're surrounded by a lot of like-minded, cool people, and then it's fun to see the people that do stick around. Obviously a lot of 100Kers, they get done, they're gone, Saturday morning and late morning, early afternoon. The race, final cutoff, 33-hour cutoff is at 5 p.m. on Saturday. And, I haven't slept since 2018, at the race, and, like not a minute. And, so it's a little, it's always a little crazy for me, but it's like, it's such a cool vibe when it's like especially those last like 3, 4, 5 hours. Cause the people that are still there, are just all hanging out. They kind of migrate a little bit more, which we're okay with. Once there's fewer people, they migrate around the aid station more. People are just like hanging out. Some people that have finished are just like laying out, waiting for their friends. We have this awesome pizza. We have a wood fire, like a pizza stove gets like a trailer that we have there. It's all day breakfast pizzas Saturday morning through the end of the race, for the last runner. So there's pizza, there's usually, beer, people are hanging out, having drinks. Like that's where you kind of see what's kind of built up over the previous 28 hours. Cause in the morning, everyone's like, whatever. And even like looking around, it's like, people aren't like chatting too much, like with each other. And then you start to see people getting to know each other and just kind of having a good time. And it's almost like, the whole, week of camp experience consolidated into like 33 hours,
Right.
like straight. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice.
I know you said you didn't want to talk so much about Crewville or whatever, but I think
Yeah.
I think it's actually important, and so
Yeah.
I think it's something to celebrate. And the reason is that the 100-mile race is more than just what the runners are participating in. There are crew that do come to race as well, and
100%.
so taking the time to provide a circle, even if you will, on a field for people to come say, oh, this place is open, I can take this spot, versus trying to talk to everybody around them saying, can I fit in here? It just gets super awkward at the very beginning. Everybody's trying to rush to get set up. And it just makes it a lot easier, a lot more streamlined for the crew itself, which as a byproduct makes it more comfortable for the runners for the experience as well, because you remove some of the pressure, some of the concerns that they may have about what's their crew going through, what's it like for them. You've given that runner comfort knowing that their crew is in a safe space, if you will. So
That's true. Very
it's
true.
not a bad thing to talk about crew.
Yeah.
It's a really good thing.
And real quick to add to that too, I think, what brings people back, it's I'm almost thinking of things as this is going on, because there's always so much, but I think the Crewville brings people back because even if they're not running the race, they're excited to pace their friend, or, a crew pace their friend, because now they know, like, they get to do the fun stuff that, they weren't able to do because they were busy out suffering for 100 miles. You know what I mean? So I think that does add to it, and that's part of that community. But I think specifically it's like, you run the long distance race and you watch all the people doing the short race get done hanging out, and you're like, I wish that was me. And then, it gives it more reason when it's going to be fun to be that person that comes back and doesn't have to run all the miles. You know what I mean? So I think we see a lot of that for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Coming back and not running. Yep.
So for the people that are, though, going to stick it out and watch everybody have fun, so they're out on the course. So we talked about, you kind of gave the layout of the aid stations, but if somebody's planning, okay, and we've talked, train the way that you're going to race, are there specific, and I think you put a good, last time we did one of these, either hydration or products that people need to know, whether it's sponsors or something that's always there that people can plan for at your race?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's, I mean, all the races that we've worked with Tailwind. I personally use Tailwind. I like it. We have Tailwind at all the aid stations, soda, coffee, all that kind of, all your basic fluids and things like that. So, I mean, I guess in terms of a specific sports drink, Tailwind, we have drop bags too beyond the aid stations themselves. There's drop bags available at all 4 aid stations too. So you can easily have your own drink powder, your own whatever in that sense, one of the things that I am proud of with the aid stations, and one of the things that I think that adds to them is, it's been a very specific strategy from the start to have experienced runners captaining the aid station. But beyond that, we have a very kind of like a standard layer across all of them. So we do all the shopping together, things like that, where there's specific things that every aid station is going to have, as extensive as we can be, layer of everything. So, every aid station is going to have I guess, gosh, I'm going to ramble, but, like pickles and cookies and chips and broth and mashed potatoes, bacon, fruit, things like that. And above and beyond, like the real basic stuff too. I mean, we make sure that all the aid stations are the basic level, but I think what sets us apart too, in some ways, is that we then, we fund the aid stations to do whatever they want beyond that. So they're not on the line. I think that's a big part of it. They're not on a hook, for like, if they want to do fun things, it allows them to do, like, every aid station is different. So they got that base layer, so you can expect those same things. And then they just, they can kind of do whatever they want, and they don't really coordinate with each other, which is good, because then it's different stuff. And we've had, EB Lions had Thanksgiving boats for like 4 hours, from like midnight to 4 a.m. a few years ago. It was mashed potatoes, turkey, green beans, like the fried onions, corn, and there's people that loved them. You wouldn't expect, maybe necessarily that heavy of food, but things like that. But yeah, I mean, there's some of the aid stations, it becomes like they want to be the the most creative, the most savory, the most delicious, the most sweet, whatever, and so they're allowed to do that versus. I think there's, aid stations that, at some events where it's like, oh, you get $100 to spend. All right, cool. You're not going to get that great, you're not going to do much. And, people are generous for sure, but, they can't really go all out. And that's the thing we encourage everyone. It's like, don't waste money, but like get nuts. Like we pay you back, so just, and I think that's one of the things that's fun is, they'll have menus for like 4-hour segments throughout. And it's so it's the stories you hear about people is just like, and then I walked into, this aid station and they had this, and then, and then I went to this next aid station and they didn't have that, but then they had this. And, and that's fun to see. And I think that ties back into what we're talking about, how important food is, and good food and quality offerings and things like that. So I think in terms of, so I guess prep your stomach, you know what I mean? Like if you're only eating gels and drinking water and drinking Tailwind, then, you'll be good. Like you'll be fine. But if you need more, if you're like me and, you burn a lot of calories while you're running, having a lot of those substantial food options, I think are a huge plus. And we take pride in it. I mean, we love it. We have some really creative people. They have a lot of fun with it, and they do a lot of different stuff. So.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that you give the aid station captains that kind of freedom and flexibility to come up with that on top of the standard.
Yeah,
like you said.
We also want it to be, and that was a big part of it. It was like there should also be consistency. Like you shouldn't go to one aid station, they don't have pickles,
right?
Like like that. There's some things that people are going to eat at every single stop, no matter what. And yeah, we never wanted that to be the case where you didn't have like the basics at any aid station. So.
It's a good balance. I like it.
Yep. All right. So let's talk about registration process. We're talking October. So right now we're in August, right? So we're getting close. Do you guys limit the amount of runners? What does the registration process look like? And is there a qualification required?
There is no official qualification. We just have always had on the website. We strongly recommend people having ran a 50-mile trail race in the previous year for the 100-miler. A 50K trail race in the previous year for 100K. But yeah, we're not sticklers on that. I mean, we have a lot of people that are going to run their first 50-miler in June and, they sign up in January and, it is what it is. I mean, there's also people that come in, and I think we've had people that their first trail race was the 100-miler. People are crazy, you're going to have those stories, and that's fine. Like, we obviously just want people to be smart about it on some level. And beyond that, registration opens January 1st at midnight. We do cap it at about a couple hundred, like basically 200 runners. We fill up pretty quick, which is really cool. About 6 days this last year, and then we maintain a wait list. We have a very generous deferral refund policy in place. So we work really hard to move through spots. I think we had, obviously registration's been open. We've been essentially at capacity for over 8 months now. I mean, there's been about 100 people on the wait list, in addition to the 200 some spots, in the race, so we just work through those as regularly as we can. Usually we see, there's two main deferral deadlines, June 30th and August 31st. So those are kind of those are the times we see the most mobility on the wait list. And then, not everyone accepts their invite off the wait list. So the spots keep trickling down. So we do pride ourselves on moving through it pretty efficiently and quickly, and we've generally cleared it. But, you always want, people to be early with their sign up, and we have I mean, January 6th, we hit capacity, which was this year, which is the fastest we've ever have. And that was, that's always fun and very flattering and very cool that people plan that far out and want to do the race. They want to get into the race, and but life happens, and we get that, and we're not about taking your money. You know what I mean? Like, if you give us a heads up, we do our best to make sure people are taken care of. Deferrals are good for 2 years. So it's, not just the following year, but the year after. We have a pregnancy deferral that's even more generous. So yeah, we do our best to make sure people feel taken care of, for sure.
That's awesome. So I would think that if you're listening to the episode and you're thinking you want to run the race, then just go ahead and, I think if I do know this, you're on Ultra Sign Up, so people can go ahead and log into Ultra Sign Up. They can add this race to their watch list, and then prior to registration opening up in January, they can get their email reminder a couple days beforehand to know that they won't forget. And so if you are inspired by this episode, then I would highly encourage you to go to Ultra Sign Up, add Minds of Spain to your watch list so that you can register in January for the 2025 edition. I'm assuming if I were to register now to be on the wait list, I have a very small possibility of getting in, but it's probably not a high probability.
Officially, you have a very small possibility. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not impossible. We've had people, sign up late, and we're at the mercy of people letting us know they're not going to come, people taking advantage of the deferral policy, things like that. But yeah, obviously with a race like this, a lot of those spots kind of keep trickling. People already make plans by this time, so we are able to move through a lot of spots. But yeah, I would say your chances are definitely a lot lower at this point, because I mean what are we, like
3 months out?
No, 2 months.
2 months out.
2 months, yeah. So
Josh,
it's like
this is a good problem that you have. Like,
it's a great problem.
Yeah, we don't want to be apologetic. This is a good problem. So if I want to run your race, the answer is I need to get on the watch list so I can register in January.
Yeah, that 100%. And
awesome.
If you want to check the race out, a lot of people do reach out like, hey, I can't run it this year, or I'm not gonna be able to get in the race. If you have friends running it, come crew, come pace, come volunteer. If you don't know anyone running it, just come out and volunteer at an aid station. And if you don't like what you see, then don't sign up next year. You know what I mean? Like that's fine. You know what I mean? It's not, every race is not for everyone. But yeah, I mean, definitely have them just be a part of it if you're interested, and hopefully you'll want to come back and run it. And if not, maybe you'll just want to come back and volunteer every year, and that's cool too. So
that sounds awesome to me.
We love volunteers. So.
Well, we'll make sure we get all the links in the show notes. Mine's a Spain 100, and I know you mentioned there's 100K. Are there any other distances along with that?
No, just the 100 mile and 100K. Yep.
Perfect. So we'll get that in there. But if you're listening, watching, hopefully you're as excited about the way this sounds, especially Crewville, which probably would be my favorite part. But yeah, we just appreciate everybody tuning in, taking in the information. Again, if you're finding value, tell your friends about the podcast as well as about the race. But Josh, we appreciate you so much. Our motto is just show up. And so that's kind of what we put out into our community. Is very clear as a race director, as somebody who pulls together in the community, that you are just showing up. Thank you for everything that you do.
That's a good motto. So thank you. And thank you for everything you guys do. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we're going to keep you on just for a minute as we say our goodbyes to everybody else. We appreciate you so much. We'll talk soon. Cut.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you haven't already, don't forget to check out our full lineup of podcast episodes that are designed to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey.
So be sure to check the links below, and you can visit our website at theultrarunningsguys.com or download your episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, when in doubt, just show up.
See ya.